Hello and welcome back to the channel, and welcome to a very long overdue return to Lincoln Green. That's right, a very long time ago now. It was nearly 2 years ago. One of my first ever beer reviews was a beer from Lincoln Green, and that was actually this beer. This one, if anyone remembers it, it's called Buttermuch, and it is a butterscotch ale. I still think this is absolutely sublime, and should you be lucky enough to get your hands on some, because it's not brewed all the time, I would strongly recommend doing so. However, today that is not what we're here to talk about. Today, well, firstly I want to talk about the brewery tour I experienced at Lincoln Green. A week ago today, from the time of recording, I was on my way to Lincoln Green's brewery, where I'd been invited to take part in their kind of end of year brewery tour, which, as most brewery tours, include a tour around the brewery and tasting some beer, and that's exactly what I thought I was going to get. But I got an awful lot more. So just before we get onto the beer, I'm going to talk you through exactly what happened. Well, I arrived at Lincoln Green, which their brewery is, as most are in Nottingham to be fair, on a nondescript industrial estate, which is nothing new to be honest. Arrived there, found the entrance and got in. Upon arrival we were shown upstairs to, well, a fully functioning bar. This wasn't a brewery tour where you simply got, a few samples out of the odd keg. No, this had a full bar, and the full bar was free. Well, it would have been included in the ticket price, at least. But it was a full and proper bar. You could have as much as you want, loads of variety on there. So sat up there, had a few drinks, waited for everyone to arrive, waited for the tour to start. There was a nice little kind of bit in front of the TV. And then we did the full, well, half tour actually, in just going through how the beer making process is done for those who are on the tour that didn't actually know. Of course, for me, what was most interesting was seeing how what they do differs from everyone else. I won't give away all of their secrets here. You'll have to go and view the very tour because it is definitely worth a trip. But yeah, had a great time. And then halfway through the tour, we were instructed to go back upstairs, get some more beer, and tuck in to a proper fish supper. Just old school British fish and chips, which halfway through a brewery tour, after you already had a few pints, is really very welcoming indeed, and the quality was exceptional. So massive thumbs up from me on that one. And then we continued the rest of the tour, went through a load of stuff, showed us their new canning machine, loads of interesting bits, and then again back up for more drinks afterwards. And of course they had their brewery shop opening and functional, which is opening, well, pretty much every day of the week, I believe. So you can just go there and buy some beer, which is exactly what I did. And whilst I was at Lincoln Green in their shop, I picked up this, which we're here to talk about today. And this is called Schaffler, which is not the punchiest name, but it is interesting. And it's a 6.9% American stout. The description on the front is silky, hoppy, and roasted, which will be interesting. I'm a big dark beer fan, big stout fan. I'm always uncertain about putting heaps of hops into beer, and at what point does a hoppy stout become a black IPA or gets a little bit fraught. But having tried quite a few things from Lincoln Green, and especially from their Black Shale project, which we'll talk a bit more about in a minute while I was there, I've got very high hopes. So then before we break into this, here is a quick look at the can. I mean, this is kind of their new craft experimental line, the Black Shale project, and it is an incredible looking can. It gets even better on the back, if I'm honest. Obviously the front looks fantastic, and then say move it around, loads of info, the artwork continues. It just looks very proper. Now then, before we talk about what it looks like other than a dark beer, I have to say, on opening this beer, it's going to sound a bit mad, but it smelt like a brewery. Now, you would think, if you've never been to a brewery, that, well, of course it does, breweries are bound to smell like beer. And they do, but it's distinctly different from an opened packaged beer. It's fresh malt, fresh hop, just fresh. And this smells fresh. We'll get into that a bit more when we do the aromas. First up though, in the glass, I mean, just at an eye's glance, it's a solid black beer with a one finger, just off-white head on it. If I hold it up to the light, there is a glimmer of ruby red right at the bottom there, but to be honest, that's probably to be expected at this kind of ABV. And yeah, looks good, that, I have to say. Right then, aromas. The freshness continues. Oh, that's the most different, most appealing, most aromatic beer I think that I've stuck my nose over for some time. Obviously, it does have big hop content, but it's not particularly citrusy. It's just vibrant, fresh, slightly green. It's also a huge malt content. I mean, very caramel, but almost a bit fresh bready as well. It's really, it's punching at a few levels, this beer already on the aroma, and very rarely do I sit and just go, I just want to enjoy the aromatics of this, because normally they're a bit flat even on the most exciting beers, and this, no, this is really punching. So let's get into it, shall we? Cheers. Whoa. Whew. That's big, rich, luscious, twangy, bitter, little fruity, little bit floral. I'll tell you what this reminds me of. And this might come across in the wrong way, because today it's not necessarily the best beer, but way back when it made a big statement. And this is better than this beer, before I say anything. It's better in every way. But that sip reminded me of the first time I tried the original Witchwood Hobgoblin. But I really do not mean that in anything but an absolute positive way, because what you get from that and what you get from this is a really deep, rich malt, solid backbone, and then loads of playful, fruity, floral, zingy hop flavours that actually just made me realise hoppy dark beer is excellent if you use the right hops. Right then, top to bottom taste test time, so I can try and justify that comment I just made. I say it's a bigger pressure. It's almost like, you know, when they brought out King Goblin, it should have been exceptional, and it was just a bit stronger, a bit maltier, to be honest, a bit flatter. This is what that should have been like, but this is Empress Goblin to me. Is what I'm going to call it. It's so good. Obviously, it's not the same brewery, and I don't want to keep making that reference because I feel like it might be a bit offensive to Lincoln Green, but it's really not. I'm absolutely adoring it. Right, anyway, top to bottom taste test. So initially, really light carbonation, which is a huge win for me on this style of beer, and just a little hint of bitterness right on the front of the tongue. Next bit, refreshing, slightly floral, slightly citrusy. It's that hop character really starts to come through. It's still playful though, it's light, it's almost refreshing at that point. And then as it goes back, you start to get a hint. You get some caramel notes, a bit of red berry perhaps, and it just starts, the malt starts to set in, the breadiness, the biscuitiness, all starts to just give you a hint that something big is about to go down. And then as you swallow it, huge explosion, hops bash back in, much more intense this time, a bit of green, kind of grassy, earthy hop note, tiny bit of fruity, bit of floral, and just as you think that's getting intense, this massive, massive, bready, dark, almost bonfire toffee malt comes in, dries the tongue out completely, big battering of bitterness, but not too much. It's the first mouthful's a bit of a shocker in terms of just the anticipation of the bitterness. I wasn't expecting it, but then everyone afterwards is, yeah. I am disappointed that I only came away with one of those, because that is an absolutely scintillating dark beer, and that aroma just gets me every time. It's brewery memories, that aroma. It really is just something else. Right then, before I drink this all too quickly, let's take a look at the can. So, on the front of the can it says brewed in Nottingham, and for those that are interested, they are based in the Hucknall area of Nottingham. Lincoln Green Brewing Co. Schaffler, it's a mouthful that one. Silky, hoppy and roasted, as we said before, a 6.9% American stout, part of their Black Shell project. Little bit I did learn on the tour. So their Black Shell project, as I already said, is kind of their more craft orientated, modern, experimental division. And they've called it the Black Shell project because everything in that project is going to be named something to do with mining, basically. Their brewery sits on the top of an old black shale mine, and that whole area is very kind of ex-mining community driven. So yeah, it's kind of a tip of the hat to their origins there. And on the bottom of the can, which is their tagline for the whole brewery, as you can see there, it says "Building Legends," because a lot of their naming conventions, including the name Lincoln Green itself, are references to the folklore surrounding Robin Hood and that sort of thing, which is always very cool to see. It's got their address in Hucknall, Nottingham on the back. The ingredients are water, malted barley, torrefied wheat, oats, hops, and yeast. Yeah, absolutely. As I said, the malt profile on this is pretty unreal, and that explains it because, well, there's an awful lot in there. It's got some allergen advice on there. There's 3 UK units exactly in this can. It says, Lincoln Green Brewing Co. founded in 2012. We take our name from the colour associated with Nottinghamshire's legendary character Robin Hood. And then the Black Shale Project, taking the name of our coal seam that runs beneath our brewery. Project Black Shale features unusual beer styles, alternative yeast strains, dry hopping, and all manner of crazy flavours. It says again, Schaffler, 6.9% American stout, a rich, strong stout with complex, creamy malt base and US hops. I'll be honest, I didn't think US hops would gel in this style of beer, and I definitely didn't think they'd result in that, because that beer right here is absolutely stunning. And I've not tipped many beers for this yet this year. That's another Beer of the Year nominee for me. That is a massive surprise. Not in the fact that it's from Lincoln Green, because I absolutely adore several of their beers, including the one I showed you earlier. But that is just, I guess they are seen very much as a traditional brewery, and they consider this kind of work very much in its experimental stage for them. And if that's what they're doing to start with, well, sign me up, because that is an absolute stunner. And that really is all I've got to say about it. So as always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you haven't already subscribed, if you will be so kind, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.